past is erased because of the cross, and hope brights my future because of your love. And you have restored me for your glory, Lord. Now I have the victory, 'cause you've overcome sin, love. And love came in like a tidal wave, hope rushing in, running through my veins. Jesus, you're alive in me. And grace overflow like I've never known. Life breathing in, speaking to these bones. Jesus, you're alive in me. You're alive in me. Your spirit is here, and freedom's all around, shifting the atmosphere, breaking walls down. Faith is rising, faith is alive in you. My heart is ignited, heaven is breaking through. 'Cause love came in like a tidal wave, hope rushing in, running through my veins. Jesus, you're alive in me. Grace overflow like I've never known. Life breathing in, speaking to these bones. Jesus, you're alive in me. You're alive in me. Faith is rising, heaven open, chains are broken. Jesus, you're alive in me. I know. Faith is rising, heaven open, chains are broken. Jesus, you're alive in me. Faith is rising, heaven open, chains are broken. Jesus, you're alive in me. 'Cause love came in like a tidal wave, hope rushing in, running through my veins. Jesus, you're alive in me. And grace overflow like I've never known. Life breathing in, speaking to these bones. Jesus, you're alive in me. You're alive in me. You're alive in me. You're alive in me.
You sing, count on one thing. I count on one thing. The same God who's never fails. He won't fail me now. You won't fail me now. In the waiting. The same God who's never late. Working all things out. Working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high. sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Lord, yes, I will. I count on one thing. This ain't God who's never fails, and He won't fail me now. He will not fail me now. He's in the way. This ain't God who's never late. He's working all things out. He's working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in my lowest valley. Yes, I will lift your name. Oh yes, I will sing your joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. Lord, all my days. Oh yes, I will, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. Yes, I will. Oh yes, I will. There's a new high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will. Bless your name. Oh yes, I will. Sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. All my days. Oh yes, I will. All my days. I choose to praise. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names.
Nothing can stand.
Okay, yes, I will. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Lord, yes, I will. All my days. Oh yes, I will. One more time. Lord, all my days. Oh yes, I will. So Lord, we just like to just thank you so much for this time that we've had fellowship, Lord, and I just pray that we'll just continue to follow you, Lord, and just to lift your name high and just give you thanks for everything that you do for us every day, Lord. And now we just really just take joy in the small victories that we have, and just allow those things that you give us every day to give us the hope that we need to push on to be able to break through and to not falter. So Lord, we love you and give you all the glory and all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, welcome young adults to YA Online. My name is Jakeem. I'm the young adults pastor here. We are so excited that you are joining us this week. We hope that you are well. Once again, just want you to know that we miss you, and our prayer and hope, and actually I don't want to share too much, but there's some opportunities for us to start meeting in person outside, but we'll speak to that as it comes. But for tonight, I'm super pumped that you are with us because we are kicking off a brand new series that is simply titled Sermon on the Mount. Now, I know for some, maybe if you're unaware of what that is, it may just be this, wow, profound title. What is that? But it's really not. The Sermon on the Mount is actually a portion of scripture that is found in the book of Matthew, chapter 5 through chapter 7. And it's a really pivotal or vital portion of passage because when you look at it or when you really start to dive into it, it really becomes known as Jesus' most popular sermon. It's the sermon or the message that Jesus shares on the side of a hill or a small mountain or hill on the side of the Lake of Galilee, where Jesus shares this message that addresses just a variety of topics, and it becomes one of his, the things that he's known for most, so that message that is known for most, because he addresses so many things and begins to talk and deal with so many different things that take place in each of our lives. So we're really excited we have a YA teaching team that has been just kind of planning and sermon prepping and even debating and arguing and having conversations around what is God trying to say and what is he meaning and what does this mean for our lives. So over the next couple of weeks, we don't even have a timeline for it because there's so many different things that he touches on, but we're going to be walking through and journeying through this Sermon on the Mount, and we're really excited for it. And here's why. Here's why we do a series like this is because the truth is that many of us live by an ethic that we define for ourselves. Like many of us live by maybe a code of morality or code of ethics that we define for ourselves, or maybe even worse, we live by a standard of living, an ethics or morality that others define for us, that with how we live, right? The ethics that we live by, the morality that we live by, right? This standard that we live by, we either define for ourselves or even worse, allowed the world or culture or someone else to define for us. And what the Sermon on the Mount is Jesus redefining morality, Jesus redefining ethics. What the Sermon on the Mount is, it begins to take into account some daily living, some things that happen throughout our life, maybe on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis when it comes to how we treat people and the vows that we keep and how we forgive and all these different things, our prayer life. It takes all these different things and he begins to redefine morality and ethics according to his standard. He begins to challenge the way that people live, and not just challenge the way that people live, but even the heart behind how we live. So like I said, man, the upcoming weeks in this series is going to be so good. But truthfully, our hope is that it would challenge you, that it would challenge us, that we would listen and hear some of this message that Jesus is sharing, and it stops and makes us examine our life. It makes us reflect on our life to see if our life, the ethics and the morality and the principles that we live by are aligned with Jesus' kingdom standard for us. So I'm going to kick off today, week 1. And as I jump in, I'm going to pray for us. Jesus, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you so much for your love, your grace, and for an opportunity to walk through this message from your Son. This message that gives us an opportunity to reflect and align our life and our hearts and our wills, God, with what you have placed or made the standard. So God, have your way. In Jesus' name, amen. So in order to really start this conversation and kick us off week 1 in this series, Sermon on the Mount, I have to introduce to you a certain value system. And for us here in the Western culture, right, in the United States, it's actually probably a little bit unfamiliar, but to a lot of the world, especially in the Mediterranean area and Israel and a lot of those different areas, this is a very common way of life, and it's called honor and shame. Now, the reason I have to really present this and kind of get us on even playing field, or at least an even understanding of what is happening here when we talk about honor and shame, is because Jesus, especially where we're starting off today, but really throughout this Sermon on the Mount, is speaking to a group of people or a crowd of people that have embraced or understand this idea of honor and shame. And here's what honor and shame is. If I can kind of make it as simple as I can, honor and shame is this. It's that in the ancient Near Eastern culture, there was this idea that it was almost like a credit system. Maybe that's not the best example, but it was this idea that there was a certain amount of honor to go around, and your hope and your aim was to achieve or accumulate as much honor as you can. Now, you got honor through a lot of different ways, right? Through your family name and maybe the family that you were born in, depending on the honor that they've accumulated at this time that you came in at a certain place, or maybe through wealth. That if you were rich and had money, there was this way that you could, right? You already came in at a certain level of honor, and then it was about maintaining and stewarding it, or for some, it was about reputation. It was about maybe what you were known for and the things that maybe you have done, or this good that you have done for maybe the community, for your family, for the region, that you've gained this reputation. Or for some, it was social status. It was what you did for a living. It was the people that you knew that, okay, because of the people that you knew and what you did for a living and the impact that you've had because of your social status, you've had this degree of honor. And they live life with this constant pursuit of honor. They live life with this constant pursuit of trying to achieve honor. And here's the thing, it would show up in smaller ways, because even though you may came with a starting place, what would happen is you had groups of people that would find themselves in situations dishonoring maybe someone else in this attempt to gain honor. That the hope was that if I can outwit somebody, or maybe be more calm, more peaceful, more if I can produce in a certain amount of way, that I would be able to gain honor. And it was literally this back and forth, almost like a game, unspoken rule game that people played, that I had this amount of honor, and I would do certain activities, and I would engage with people in certain ways, all understanding this system or value, or this value system of honor. Now, that was a real simple. We're going to talk about that really over the next couple of weeks as well, because it's important. And Jesus is addressing, right, this Sermon on the Mount with this value system in mind. But the truth is, the reason I really want to bring it up is because even though we may not call it honor and shame, we live with similar principles dictate our culture as well. Like, it may not be this game that we play or this understanding, but the truth is the similar principles dictate our culture as well. Like, we choose who we value and who we honor. That even though maybe not collective or individually, but collectively, there's this idea of who we value and who has honor. So when we look at certain celebrities, or we look at those that are wealthy, or now today with social media, we have social media influencers. These are the people that maybe get ascribed a certain level of value or honor. But here's the thing, the sad thing is also on that flip side, and we haven't talked too much about that, is that we often devalue or shame those that don't measure up to society expectations, or they don't fulfill a need. Because the flip side of this pursuit of honor is this idea of shame, and we often find ourselves devaluing or shaming those that don't measure up to our society expectations of fulfilling a need. Like, when I think about people maybe that are poor, or homeless, or lacking, or maybe those that are a little bit socially awkward, or maybe they're those that have maybe a criminal history or a past or background, have made some serious mistakes that kind of linger over them. We kind of cast them out. Or maybe some that have had maybe a promiscuous past, or we know how we kind of look or have that side or that feeling about that person, and maybe that young teenage mother or that person that had kid outside of wedlock. Like, there's this whole idea, right, that whether innately, subconsciously, or these ideas that rest on the inside of us, that we find ourselves devaluing or dishonoring or devaluing those that don't measure up to society expectations. And here's the thing, we're not the first ones to do that. Like I said, this was their culture. They lived and abided by this. And this is the first issue that Jesus addresses by simply how he approaches a Sermon on the Mount. This is the first issue and the first topic or the first idea that Jesus begins to address in simply how he approaches the Sermon on the Mount. So, like I said, if you got your Bibles, I'm going to be over in Matthew 5. I'm actually going to read I'm going to start in chapter 4, verse 23 and read into chapter 5. And this is what it says. And it says, and Jesus traveled throughout the region of Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. News about him spread as far as Syria. And people soon began to bringing to him all those who were sick, and whatever their sickness or disease, or if they were demon possessed or epileptic or paralyzed, he healed them all. Verse 25, large crowds followed him wherever he went, people from Galilee, the 10 towns, Jerusalem, and all over Judea, and from the east of the Jordan River. Chapter 5, verse 1. And then it says, one day as he saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went up to the mountainside, sat down. His disciples gathered around him, and he began to teach. So to catch us up, I think we have to speak to what Jesus is up to. And I just want to catch us up to where we are when we come to this passage in Matthew 5. And what happens is, man, Jesus is very early on in his ministry. He's just starting off. We still have a lot of more chapters to go, but he's early on in his ministry, but he's already got his hands dirty. He's already doing what he does. It says that he's been traveling in teaching throughout the synagogues, that he's been healing people, touching people. And what happened is his influence has been growing. His reputation has been going. They've been hearing about, man, I think there's this guy over by around the area of Galilee who's touching and healing people, that he's teaching with authority. He's teaching with power, right? There's this man. And what happens is, from this guy who probably started with no honor because he's from Nazareth, which they'll speak to further on in the passage, this guy with very little honor has been teaching and been healing, and his influence and his honor is growing. See, he's been traveling and teaching people. His reputation as a teacher has been spreading into local towns, and Jesus has been gaining honor. However, here's the thing, and this is what takes place in the story, and this is why you have to understand the value system of honor and shame, because even though he's been gaining honor, when you look at the picture and those who are present, people with honor aren't necessarily supposed to be identified with people without it, or with people less than that with you have. Now that's not meaning you can't, right, have connection with. Obviously, people were bringing sick people to him, right, to heal them and to touch them. And you can be kind and you can, right, do charity. But even that is supposed to be this attempt or this approach of increasing one's own personal honor. That the people that you associate with and identify also speaks to the honor. The community that you keep around also speaks and emphasize the honor. So this person who's been gaining honor, this person whose reputation and influence is growing, what happens is this passage is really counterculture. It's really shifting or changing the norms that they used to. And you can only understand that by recognizing who is in the crowd, right? It says that there's paralyzed, epileptic, demon possessed, right? There's this group of people that society, especially in that time, has deemed completely unimportant. That they're people that have very, very low honor. These aren't the people that you hang with and kick it with. And like I said, it's okay that if you bring them to Jesus to be healed in an act of charity, right, to spread your influence. But these aren't the people that you associate and continue, right, to be around. But here's what Jesus does. Jesus sees this group, and though he's healing and his influence is growing and the crowds are following, and these people that are making up the crowd are sick, paralyzed, epileptic, disease, possessed. These are the people that are around. And here's what's happening. Jesus says he sees them. He sees the crowd. He says he sees the crowd. And here's the thing. When religious leaders and other members of society want nothing to do with them, this is the group that Jesus chooses to see and prioritized. This is the group of people that others have disregarded and counted as unimportant, but Jesus chose to prioritize. And it says at the very beginning of chapter 5, it says that Jesus saw them. That he saw them. And even though he doesn't just stop at seeing them, and here's why this is important. Because Jesus is on a mission, right, to spread the kingdom. Jesus is on a mission, right? He knows where he's headed. He knows what he's doing. And this isn't the group of people that you choose to sit around and to be around and to spend a significant amount of time. Like I said, you can heal them and give them charity. But someone trying to gain influence shouldn't be risking his honor by hanging with these people. But it says that Jesus saw them. Here's what I love. You can write this down. That Jesus gave his greatest sermon to those who were seen as the least. Is that Jesus gave his greatest sermon to those who were seen as the least. Like, you have to understand it, and we'll get through it as we talk throughout this series, the magnitude. But this Sermon on the Mount, man, is Jesus's manifesto, right? It's his creme de la creme. It's his probably his most important piece of work when it comes to him speaking, actually teaching, right? Of course, him dying on the cross and being raised again, right, is definitely his most important act. But when it comes to the words and the message and the teaching that he shared, this is his great manifesto. And the group of people that he chooses not just to see, but he chooses to sit down and share his greatest teaching, his greatest message, his greatest work with those that so many others would have disregarded, that so many others would have counted out. Like I said, man, this manifesto, it's the staple of his mission for establishing God's kingdom on earth. And this is the group of people that he chose to share his most important message with. I like it because I believe this is that Jesus is making it clear that everyone is invited into God's kingdom. Now, that may seem simple or maybe understanding or elementary for us, but you got to understand for that time that this whole honor and shame, who was in and who was out, was very, very clear and very, very important. It was what they based on. But Jesus, man, coming to break all those social norms and status quos, and says, the first thing you have to understand as I get ready to teach you this kingdom manifesto, right? This ethics and morality message of what it means to live by Jesus's kingdom standard. The first thing you have to understand is that everyone is invited into God's kingdom. That everyone has a place in God's kingdom. And here's the thing, because he knows, and he starts, and I think this is why he chooses to start with this group that has been deemed unimportant, unseen, right? And Jesus sees them. And I think for some of us, and I can even think to myself, my own personal experience, that there's been moments where or stories like this and watching Jesus do this is just so affirming, because I remember there was moments in my life where I was unseen. Right, where I felt like I wasn't enough, or I wasn't important. I think about my own personal story, maybe when it comes to spending 6 months in jail, or those moments when I was dropped out of college, or these seasons because of, right, spending some time with a criminal record, not being able to find a job. There was these moments that I was unseen. And maybe for some of you, there are moments in your life where you feel unseen, where you don't feel good enough, where you don't feel important enough, where you don't feel valued enough. I love that Jesus comes, and just like he does for these people, he sees us. And not just sees us, but invites us into his mission, into what he is up to. That is just so affirming that these people that were unseen, not enough, Jesus sees them. But I love it that Jesus doesn't just stop at seeing them. Jesus, it goes on to say, Jesus teaches them. That it says that he saw the crowd and that he sat down and he began to teach them. Here's the truth. Reality is, even though that we were unseen, even though that they were unseen, maybe that they were less than, the truth is they actually still followed that same system of living and our thinking. That the truth is that their moral standard of living was probably just as off as those who dismissed them or devalued them or dishonored them. That was the culture and the system and the life that they lived in. The truth is, even though they were unseen and devalued, the reality is they still needed the hope and the transformation and the salvation that Jesus brought. That it doesn't just stop, hey, because I've seen you, but I also recognize that your life in different ways or is just as broken, just as sinful, just as living by their own code of ethics instead of prescribing to what Jesus had. And Jesus says not only did he see them, but he recognized the importance that he teaches them. And here's what it comes. It says that Jesus's message was first affirming, but it was also challenging for everyone. That even though Jesus's message was to get those that were broken right, those that were sick, those that were poor, those that were lacking, it was this message. I do want to let you know that you're invited into it. But even though you're invited into it, this isn't just about feeling good. But the truth is, this message is going to challenge you as well. The same way I'm challenging the religious leaders, the same way that I'm challenging those that are in sin, the same way that I'm challenging, those that have a little bit of honor, I'm inviting you in, but that doesn't let you off the hook. But there's a challenge, right? That your moral standard of living, if it's separated from Jesus, right, that we can't dismiss that. And Jesus begins to teach them. Jesus begins to teach each person of the ethics that direct their daily life. I mean, he begins to teach each person of the ethics that should direct their daily life. And that's what we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks. And we'll see later, man, he even kind of shares it like this, that even though, yes, they may seem unimportant or dismissed, but even on their best day, they're missing the mark of what God's standard of living, right? What God's moral or ethic standard for them to be living on a daily basis. Jesus is about to challenge not just what they do, but the why they do what they do. I love it that even though he sees them and he affirms them, he invites them into the kingdom, a place where they've maybe never been invited for so long they've been unseen. It's this affirming, it's this confidence building, it's this honoring moment. But it doesn't stop there, because he also recognizes that same Jesus that has to come and change the hearts of the religious leaders and those around the area is the same Jesus that has to come and change the hearts of those that have been broken and devalued for so long. And here's what it is, man. If you can write this down, highlight, underline, circle this. But here's the thing. The Sermon on the Mount is about an invitation, but not just an invitation to make them feel better, but to help us live better. That the Sermon on the Mount is about an invitation. And not just to make them feel better, but to live better. And I think that's the same invitation for us. As we journey over the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, who knows how many weeks, we're going to walk through this as best we can and thorough, because it's so important. But here is what you have to understand about the Sermon on the Mount as Jesus is coming and teaching people about his coming kingdom. The Sermon on the Mount is about an invitation. It's just inviting into what God is up to, into his kingdom. But it's not an invitation just to make us feel good or feel better about the things maybe, for so long not feeling important or not feeling seen or not feeling worthy. He invites us into feeling seen, feeling worthy, feeling affirmed, but he also invites us not just to live better. Not just to feel better, but to live better. So a couple truths before I wrap up. Here's the thing. What I want you to understand, man, as we talk over the next couple of weeks, the Sermon on the Mount, first and foremost, is for you. It's for me. It's for all of us. The Sermon on the Mount, as we talk, is for you. It's for me. It's for all of us. And the truth is, I maybe want to speak to some of us right now, because as I was sharing earlier, maybe there's some of us that have just for so long felt unseen, unvaluable, unimportant. And the first thing I want you to know, even before we get to the living better, is know that Jesus sees you. That Jesus sees you. And not only does he see you, he accepts you. And the thing is, regardless of how others sees you, Jesus sees you as valuable enough to share his kingdom with. That Jesus sees you as valuable enough to invite you into his kingdom. That you're not less than, that you're not secondary, but that Jesus sees you and says that you are worth sharing the kingdom with. You are worth inviting, or you are worth an invitation into the kingdom that he is establishing. The second thing is this, is that not only is a Sermon on the Mount for you, the Sermon on the Mount is meant to challenge us. And this is one thing I think that if I can just get us to lock in the back of our minds as we go over the next couple of weeks, I promise you it's not going to be tough. What it really is going to do is allow us to look at our life and reflect on our life and examine it and say, man, okay, am I living the way God has called me to live? This Jesus that I claim and that I hold to, that I've yielded my life to, am I living the way that he has asked us to live, man? So here's the thing. I'm really excited for this, but the Sermon on the Mount is meant to challenge us. Jesus touches on a lot of different areas. Many of them are supposed to make us stop us in our tracks and reflect, look at our life and examine. Not in a bad way, but this invitation into this kingdom that Jesus is establishing, this ethic, this morality that the world has tried to make. And he says, man, look, I'm redefining that. And I'm inviting you into it because when you do, your life is going to look so much better. So here's the thing, some action steps that I want you to do this week. This is funny. I feel like kind of like a little teacher, but that's okay. I kind of want to be a professor maybe sometime in the future anyway. So we do have some homework this week as we're getting ready to jump on this journey together, and it's going to be really, really good. I promise you. We got some other teachers coming. We have some conversations that we're going to have multiple people talking. It's going to be good. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to start here. I want you to read the Sermon on the Mount. This week, I want you to read the Sermon on the Mount. Read Matthew chapter 5 through chapter 7. Just read the whole thing. It's not going to take long, but I want you to just take like 30 minutes and read it really slow. I want you to read it really slow, maybe even reread it a couple times. And then I want you to do this. I want you to reflect and write the areas where Jesus may be challenging you to grow. We're going to be talking about all those different sections. He addresses a lot of different things in this manifesto of his, this sermon of his. But what I want you to do is reflect and write the areas that you've gone ahead and read and reread the Sermon on the Mount really slow. I want you to reflect and write down the areas where you think Jesus might be challenging you to grow. And as we move and have these conversations, because there's going to be some things that I really believe that Jesus is going to be challenging you to grow. Because here's the thing, over this, we talk about, man, the way that we live, the way that we prioritize prayer, the way that we're keeping our word, and the way that we're living honorably. Maybe for some, it's the way that we engage in relationships and the way that we deal with forgiveness. This is what this message, or this is what this sermon is all about. And we want you to journey with us as we unpack it. And we were having this conversation in the teaching team. The thing that we've loved so much about this is we've come around the table and we've started talking and dialoguing and trying to find out where God wants to go. The reason that made it so exciting is because each of us found ourselves having to stop, pause, and reflect and say, where is God challenging us in this moment? What is God trying to say in this moment? What is God doing in this moment? And here's the thing, this isn't us sharing with you, but this is a journey that we're going to take together. So that is my homework for you guys this week. Because here's the thing. The truth is, and I'm going to pray after this, is that Jesus sees us and he invites us into a plan that he has for humanity. Jesus sees you. He sees me. He sees us, and he invites us into the plan that he has for humanity. However, the truth is, in order for that to happen, it comes with the reshaping of how we do life. It comes with the redefining of our ethics and morality that guide, the principles that guide our daily living. So I encourage you, as you go throughout these weeks, I challenge you, man, to first accept his invitation. Come hear what he has to say. You have been invited into this kingdom. I encourage you to accept this invitation. Then I challenge you, man, to accept the challenge. That I recognize this series is going to make us stop, reflect, and think. But the truth is, man, when we accept this challenge, watch how our life changes. Let me pray first. Jesus, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you so much for being God, and thank you so much for your Sermon on the Mount that gives us an opportunity to examine, to reflect, to look at what your standard for us is. And Lord, through your Holy Spirit, empowers us to live it out. So Lord, I pray as we talk over the next couple of weeks, Lord, that you would provoke us, that you would challenge us, Lord, that you would move us to living more by your ethics, your morality, your principles for life. But that we can look more like you. So Lord, we thank you. We love you for all that you're doing. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, church, YA, love you guys. This was week 1 of Sermon on the Mount. Hang with us. This is going to be good. Love you guys. We'll be over in the Zoom groups. See you guys next week.